In the next few minutes, a QueryWeaver authentication bypass that matters for AI database assistance, an uproot Python file processing bug that matters for scientific and analytics pipelines, and an urwid web terminal session issue that reminds us browser-accessible developer tools are control plane assets. The main takeaway: patch quickly, but also reduce exposure and audit sessions, because these flaws sit close to identity, data, and code execution. First, CVE 2026-10130 FX FalkerDB QueryWeaver, an open-source Text2SQL application that turns natural language into SQL using graph-powered schema understanding. NVD rates it high, with CVSS 8.2 under version 3.1. The reported issue is an authentication bypass. An unauthenticated user can submit a sign-up request with a known existing email address and receive a valid session token linked to that identity. Confirmed facts from NVD and linked project references are limited to the advisory-level description. This briefing does not include exploit steps or proof-of-concept details. Why it matters: a natural language database interface often sits in front of business data, analytic stores, or internal knowledge graphs. If identity boundaries fail there, the AI interface can become an unintended data access path. For QueryWeaver operators, the first move is version and exposure triage. Identify every QueryWeaver deployment, including demos, internal pilots, container images, and developer sandboxes. Confirm whether it is reachable from the public internet or only from a private network. Apply project guidance or fixed commits from the official references. Then invalidate suspicious or unnecessary sessions, review sign-up and token issuance logs, and look for new sessions tied to existing email addresses that do not match normal user behavior. If QueryWeaver is connected to production or sensitive data, treat this as a possible identity exposure event until logs prove otherwise. Also consider adding upstream single sign-on, network allow lists, and approval gates for any AI database assistant that can execute queries. Second, CVE 2026-9147 affects uproot, the Python library widely used to read root files in scientific, data engineering, and research workflows. NVD rates it high, CVSS 7.8. The risk appears when an application opens attacker-controlled root files and affected streamer metadata reaches dynamically generated Python reader code. Put simply, a file parser in a trusted analytics pipeline can become code execution if untrusted data is processed without isolation. This is especially relevant for teams that accept uploaded datasets, run batch conversions, or let notebooks and automated jobs ingest files from external collaborators. The practical defensive lesson is not unique to this one library. Data files are not automatically safe just because they are not executables. For uproot users, update to the fixed version indicated by the project advisory, and map where root files enter your environment. Avoid processing unknown files directly on developer workstations. Run ingestion jobs in restricted containers or sandboxed worker pools. Limit file system permissions, block unnecessary outbound network access from parsing workers, and monitor for unexpected child processes after file imports. If a pipeline recently handled untrusted root files, preserve job logs and artifact hashes before cleanup. The goal is to turn a potential parser compromise into a contained worker incident rather than a developer laptop or production credential problem. Third, CVE 2026-9323 affects the urwid web display backend. NVD lists CVSS 8.1 under version 3.1, and a critical 9.2 under CVSS 4.0. The weakness involves session identifier generation and exposure around web terminal sessions. If a valid session identifier is obtained, a session could potentially be viewed or controlled. For everyday users this may sound niche, but for builders it is a familiar pattern. Terminal-style web interfaces often carry the same power as a shell, an admin panel, or an operations console. Even when a component is intended for development or convenience, putting it behind a browser can create a remote control surface. Defensive action for urwid and similar web terminal tools is straightforward. Update affected packages. Do not expose the web display backend to the open internet. Put it behind trusted networks, VPN, or strong authentication, and prefer short-lived sessions. Review whether temporary directories, logs, browser history, reverse proxy headers, or debugging output could reveal session identifiers. If the interface was exposed, rotate credentials that may have been used during sessions and check command histories for unusual activity. The broader rule: treat browser-accessible terminals, notebook servers, low-code builders, and AI agent workbenches as high-value infrastructure, not as harmless utilities. Fourth, 2 SurrealDB advisories are worth checking if you run older releases. CVE 2024-58366, rated CVSS 8.5 under version 3.1, concerns format string handling in scripting-enabled deployments before version 1.1.1. CVE 2024-58362, rated CVSS 8.8, concerns RPC sign-in and sign-up handling before 1.5.5 and certain 2.0 beta builds. The defensive action is to upgrade, confirm whether scripting is necessary, restrict public RPC endpoints, require strong authentication, and review record access rules. Even when a database is not directly internet-facing, application layer sign-up, sign-in, and scripting paths deserve attention because they sit at the boundary between users, identities, and data. Across all of today's stories, the pattern is bigger than any one product. AI and developer tools increasingly combine natural language interfaces, code execution, databases, terminals, model context servers, plugins, and file parsers. That combination is powerful, but it means a small configuration mistake or library bug can cross security boundaries quickly. Inventory these tools like production control plane assets. Ask who can reach them, what data they can touch, what code they can run, what credentials they can access, and how long logs are retained. Here is the practical checklist. 1. Patch QueryWeaver, uproot, urwid, and affected SurrealDB deployments according to official advisories. 2. Remove unnecessary public exposure for AI database assistants, web terminals, notebooks, and developer dashboards. 3. Require authentication and consider upstream identity controls rather than relying only on the tool's default settings. 4. Isolate untrusted file parsing and AI agent workloads in containers with minimum permissions. 5. Rotate sessions and tokens where exposure is plausible. 6. Preserve logs long enough to investigate sign-up activity, token issuance, terminal sessions, database RPC requests, and file processing jobs. This briefing is defensive only and includes no exploit code, payloads, or step-by-step attack chains. Official source links are in the description.